Blizzard have retconned their mistake. At least that's what Bellular says. Now, does that mean they retconned all of Shadowlands lore? Maybe. Most likely not. But let's see what he's talking about here, and what mistakes they have retconned.
Welcome back. Right, over the years, I've brought you some pretty damn wild theories. We've all had a bunch of fun. Today, it's one that may seem one of the craziest, but actually, the new evidence in the 10.15 time rifts is pretty damn big. These are teases that may look like fan service at first, but when you actually dig in, you find a hell of a lot more. A potential wink at the fifth old god identity, perhaps even name, and huge hints at where Xal'atath and Retconned's ultimate goals are, and maybe even a fairly massive mystery
they're
solved.
fucking.
That mystery is, what made Galakrond so damn hungry? And what is today's sponsor? Squarespace.com/Bellular Gaming, the place to rapidly establish yourself on the web, and where they've actually just changed the game with Fluid Engine, the next level way to customize and build your website. Now, they ran two of our sites, most recently the one for our game studio, and when I hopped in, I found an upgrade button on one of my content blocks, so I clicked it, and bam, Fluid Engine was enabled. I was presented with a clear grid, and soon I realized I could just drag and drop things around that grid, and it would all just work. Web stuff has never been that smooth. So text, buttons, images, whatever, you can position it how you want it, scale it about.
The best character?
I mean, it is awesome. Combine that with their award-winning templates, and you can accomplish so much more. And of course,
I can't even believe you just asked me that.
Too. And
that might be a bannable offense in chat.
Photoshop, this is how web design in my head should feel, right? In the past, it always felt a bit rigid,
never designed a website
to breaking, but here they have really solved a usability problem in a way that is super impressive, and I think is going to let people make websites that are so much nicer. It's pretty damn incredible. It's great to see them investing in just democratizing web development so everyone can have a very nice looking site. So that's Fluid Engine. It is an awesome set of features that they've just shipped, and you can check that out and build your website for free at squarespace.com/Bellular Gaming. There, you can play around with e-commerce, memberships, mailing list, bookings, appointments, all the things you could possibly want for a site. And then when you're ready to send it live, just use code Bellular Gaming for 10% off an annual plan.
There you go.
Thanks, Squarespace. Let's go.
Okay, setting the scene.
Today's story begins with a curious reemergence in 10.0.7, when the old gods in the Order of Azeroth made a very intentional reappearance. Now, this is one of the old lore books found in-game in vanilla WoW. Okay. It was the original source of the 5 old gods.
That's right.
But for years after, we only heard about 4 old gods, and everyone sort of forgot. Then Chronicle dropped, and Chronicle said there were only ever 4 old gods. But since then, Chronicle has now been retconned as the Titan's perspective of history, and Dragonflight has been a pretty damn big exercise in throwing some shade on the Titan's motivations and actions, especially when it comes to Odin. He pushed a bunch of edicts in the world, including destroying all positive records of the Black Empire, meaning everything ancient we read in-game is anti-Titan propaganda, censoring advancements and painting that age as one of chaos, misery, and generally horrible business.
Honestly, this has been one of the coolest things to me that's come out of Dragonflight, is the whole, questioning the Titans, understanding that the Titans had their own motivations. The Titans lied to us. They're actually a bunch of liars. They have their one way of doing things, and anyone who doesn't obey it or doesn't believe in it will get wrecked. And the old gods, who are by no means the good guys, but aren't maybe as evil as we thought they were. They weren't necessarily out just creating this fucking horrible, chaotic empire. No, there was actually some good that came out of their empire in terms of just the grandness of it all and what it was doing. But all of that had been essentially deleted by the Titans when it came to the lore, and they just wanted to make us think that, they made everything great by getting rid of the old god influence. When in fact, no, that's not so true.
Now, the reappearance of this book made it even more clear, because this is a version of the book that is annotated by Neltharion, right? And in his annotations, he says that, all this shit's Titan lies. And he reveals some kind of crazy truths, like there being more beyond the continents that we know. So if you wondered about the backside of Azeroth, there you go. It's in that book.
The booty of Azeroth.
Kalimdor was not the true original name of the land. But the most important thing is that there are 5 old gods. That is what is now canonical, right?
Yep.
Because this is
For now, until it gets
indisputable in-game evidence that a fifth old god was known to the Titans, or at least became known to whoever wrote down that book. But the fact that it's emerged now in the game, like, it means that its canonicity is so strong. Because it's recent, surely that will then supersede Chronicle. And yes, that does make it a retcon, but really it's a retcon back to the way that things originally were, so that's probably good. The old gods weren't exactly at peace with one another back in the day, because in the days of the Black Empire, they were engaged in a brutal war, each one trying to consume the other to rule the world for themselves. And according to some Legion lore, it may have well been that that's what happened to the fifth old god. And that old god may even be Xal'atath herself.
They got beat?
And my source from this is actually the artifact lore that you find in-game once you collect artifact knowledge back in Legion. It's for the Xal'atath dagger. Legion. And that lore actually offers a few theories. One of the theories is that she's basically a claw of Yasharj, but more importantly, it says another one of the theories that people have got about this dagger is that it's all that remains of a forgotten old god who was consumed by its kin in the early days of the Black Empire.
So she would be very angry, Xal'atath. She'd be pissed off. Because essentially she'd be the one that lost. You know, she lost out to the other old gods. And I don't think that necessarily means she's the weakest. It could be that they all teamed up against her because she was the strongest. That could be the way they play the lore, because who wants to meet the fifth and weakest old god? Nobody gives a shit about that. She has to be cool and tough. Right? So the way I would write it if I was writing it, she was actually the most powerful of the old gods. And so all the other ones, the other four, teamed up against her to defeat her. That way they could just fight amongst each other. That's the way I would write it if I was putting it in the game.
So, is Xal'atath our fifth old god?
What do I know?
There is actually in-game evidence suggesting, yes, that is the case. I mean, look at what she says to us. She knows so much of the history of the Black Empire.
So
she was
she's not a
powerful and cunning enough to make a deal with N'Zoth herself, right, for some freedom. She even calls the other old gods her brothers. So that's all convincing, but is it enough for complete conviction? It's time to cross-examine Xal'atath.
Yeah, I mean, essentially the way they retcon this one, Unreal Blue, you're right. There are, creative ways to retcon. I mean, the way they retcon this kind of is that we were lied to. Neltharian's revealing the truth now, and the previous shit that we were told, which wasn't supposed to be a lie because that was the actual lore, but now they're being told it's a lie. That's the way they kind of retconned it. Cross-examination.
Okay, let's get to some new advancements, like this one. We know Xal'atath is ambitious enough to work with Retconned on some sort of crazy anti-Titan plan.
Right.
And the plan essentially involves this: the essence of hunger taken from Galakrond's corpse. Where we last left off, Retconned slurped that deep dark goodness out of Galakrond's body, and then he made off into the night through a portal with what very much appeared to be Xal'atath. Yeah. Also, we're quite sure that Ashara is involved in all this too, because both Retconned and the lore book talking about Ashara's return mention a Harbinger. But in the book, it is in a separate breath to the Queen herself.
She still talks to you in Legion dungeons? I didn't know that.
Xal'atath has that hungering essence of the void from Galakrond. What next? Well,
and a few in Dragonflight.
Just a carved tablet that possibly...
so when you go back and do the Mythic Plus, Xal'atath still talks to you if you've transmogged her? That's pretty cool.
Does in fact change everything.
Oh, this changes everything.
Okay, so we find this chipped stone tablet in Time Rifts, right? Specifically the one in Azkaroth, which is the world where the Black Empire fought the Titans off and continued to rule over Azeroth. Right. It's a very different world, right? With the Titans not being there, right? Because with no Titans, there's no shaping, there's no sundering, just the original corrupted Azeroth and her native races, like the Taurens and the Trolls. That means there are no elves, there are no orcs, no humans. And here's what seems to have went down. The chipped stone tablet tells us a lot about Black Empire society. They sacrifice the native life as tribute, but they truly do believe that this is a great honor to the sacrificed person, because they really do believe in the cause. It's all cultish stuff.
Yeah,
now that cultishness is immediately challenged, though, in this book, because the writer of the tablet says that the pursuit of knowledge is its own reward, and seems open to the idea that these native creatures actually have feelings and may even have intelligence, which is not very cultish. Now, Sora Dormi even quips about how any society eventually does form structures, and this one is definitely different than we would expect. Like, as an example, having no old gods. The only reference that there is seemingly to one is they're giving tribute to a being known as the Ancient One.
Okay.
The Ancient One, right? We don't know exactly what it is, but we know it's hungry. Because
who would
these
that be other than an
Azkarothians
old
give
god?
it tribute each and every day to sate the hunger of it.
Or an old god influenced creature like Galakron. Because evidently old god influence for some reason on some creatures just creates an insatiable hunger. I mean, that's what happened with Galakron. He just started eating everything.
It just
Eating that
continues in some form of, I don't know, weird
Old god
meditation.
was Bobby.
But this leaves us with some
Oh
questions.
my gosh, yeah.
How did they beat the Titans?
What if Blizzard employees have just been trying to tell us this entire time that Bobby Kotick is an old god? And he has an insatiable hunger that involves putting things on the WoW shop to satiate that hunger. Oh my gosh. Did we just crack the code, guys? Holy crap.
How come there's only one Ancient One when
He's
there
been
were
hungry
5 old
for too long.
gods? Why do they make such a big deal about its hunger? In the same patch where we are seeing the endless hunger that was inside Galakron being taken into the void. Okay, let's do all 3 in one go. So remember the Xal'atath lore. There was an old god that was consumed in the early days, and the Titans claimed that only 4 remained,
Right.
each just fighting each other.
Right.
Now, if the Black Empire was weakened by a civil war that raged between old gods, then the opposite must be true. What if there was no war, or if the war had ended with a decisive victory for one of the old gods, and they were able to consume all the others? If so, they would be stronger. Theoretically
Okay.
speaking, then, if one old god was victorious, consumed everybody else, they could have been powerful enough to beat back the Titans, thus enabling the
Damn.
Azkaroth timeline that we see.
Okay.
Then, as the remaining old god, it could burrow deep into Azeroth, focus entirely on...
Remember, these old gods, the way they're created, or the reason they're created, is to corrupt world souls. What the Void Lords do is they just create old gods and throw them out into the universe without any rhyme or reason or direction, and then some of them are lucky enough to land on a planet. Now, it makes sense that if multiple landed on a planet, they would be designed to essentially eat each other, leaving only the strongest, and the strongest one would become stronger every time it ate another one, giving it the strength in the end to burrow into the planet, corrupt the world's soul, and fight off any titans that might come to challenge it. That totally makes sense. That design makes sense, actually, and I like this. The direction this lore has gone. This all started to come together.
corruption
I'm sure they'll
process
retcon it once it
and
starts to make sense,
demand
though.
tribute and sacrifice, of course, which it definitely seems to want. Now, that's one theory for what this Ancient One is, but that's the what. What about the who?
Who?
Well, our clue is in the hungering essence. It's been mentioned so often, it's clearly key to this mystery. N'Zoth was described as the patient and cunning one, Cthulhu as madness and chaos, Yogg-Saron as the god of death, and while he consumed souls, he didn't display a ravenous hunger, and then Yasharj, finally, who is all about emotional manipulation, as we see through the Shah.
Yeah.
Now, that does mean that this essence must belong to another one of the old gods. And the only other candidate that we really know of so far
Xal'atath.
is actually Xal'atath. The old writing says that Titans chained 5 old gods away, but Chronicle, a newer interpretation, shows that only 4 were warring in the map. Which is correct? What if the answer
Both.
was both?
Yeah.
Chronicle is in a
yeah.
weird place because it doesn't and cannot possibly exist in-game, because it's word of God canon coming from Blizzard themselves that after the fact was retconned into being from a Titan perspective. And that means that anything that the game itself draws attention to afterwards, like the old gods and the ordering of Azeroth, should take precedence,
Right.
because
That's the
stuff that
truth.
happens in a new patch is of a higher level of canonicity. That is just how this shit works. So, with that book reappearing, both the annotated version and,
Well,
by
that's
the
what
way,
we're
I
trying to
should
figure
say,
out. Is she the old god of
original
what?
version with no
Hunger?
annotations, but still 5 old gods,
Not sure
that
yet.
was actually added into the Scholomance revamp that Blizzard shipped in 10.1.5.
She could be the old god of what do they call her? Gluttony or something like that. You know, like the 7 sins. Because he was just talking about it. He was saying like none of these other old gods really displayed insatiable hunger like Galakron had. But maybe Xal'atath is the one. Lust, maybe. That could be
So
one,
because
too.
of that, I think we can assume that this in-game book is definitely part
Remember,
of
these
the
old
writer's
gods play off
plans.
of Lovecraftian lore. You know, Lovecraft, he wrote all this shit about these old god-esque looking beings and stuff. And a lot of those played off the seven sins and stuff like that. Life, maybe the anti-life.
And this makes extra sense if it was written by people who were writing upon the basis of all of Odin's propaganda. So, as far as he wants us to believe, the Titans sorted out 5 old gods,
Right.
even if the Titans themselves actually dealt with 4.
Yeah. 'cause
Now,
the
why would you
others
say that?
had dealt
Well,
with the fifth
Odin
already.
would have wanted to stamp out any possibility of misinformation and to fluff up the Titans' achievements. If he found out that there was at one point in time 5, but one of them was already defeated, like Xal'atath,
God of
or perhaps
Rebirth.
escaped beyond his purview, say like the anti-Keeper rebels who fled Kalimdor and went to another yet unexplored part of Azeroth where he just failed to follow. Remember that from the lore books that we find in Alderman at the very start of this expansion?
Yeah.
I know, there's a lot to keep track of, there's many moving parts, but it would be just like Odin anyway, to puff up his chest and say something crazy like, and Kalimdor was the only land that existed, and all 5 old gods were locked away by the Titans because they were the best and make no mistakes.
Right.
The end, which is
Right.
pretty much what he did. Now this leaves us with some possibilities. One of them being a new secret 5th old god, perhaps on the other side of Azeroth, but that wouldn't explain Xal'atath's part in this, nor would it explain the evidence. And also, before I get into theory time, the devs really are cooking with Xal'atath and this old god war thing.
Yeah,
You
should
see
we let
in
them
Legion
cook?
on the
That's the
Broken
question.
Shore, Xal'atath whispered to us about the Battle of C'Tanth, a big battle, big war that took place on the Broken Shore in the ancient past. Seemingly it's one
Ah,
where
this is the battle
N'Zoth
she
lost to Yasharj. Well,
Oh, N'Zoth
this
lost there.
elite was actually added in this patch. The elite is called Zalkir the Chosen, the Maw of C'Tanth. Now that is a suspicious time to bring C'Tanth
Yeah.
back up. I believe this is only the second time it has ever been mentioned in the game, and this is especially of note because he drops an item called the Black Blade of C'Tanth.
Oh, shit.
Xal'atath's dagger is called the Black Blade of the Empire. Wow, that's very suspicious. What is C'Tanth then? I've got a funny feeling we may
Maybe
find
these things turn out to be like we kind of thought, the claws of the old god or something that we're gonna bring back. I don't know.
out before long. But
Maybe we'll
anyway,
find more
let's
daggers
get into
along
the
the
real
way
fun,
here.
the theories. Xal'atath is the 5th old god and seeks the Hungering Essence to complete herself.
Right.
Think about it this way. Xal'atath was clearly someone important back in the day.
Yeah.
She knows more than anyone else who's like at least ever been willing to talk to us, right? Like she's an absolute font of wacky occult knowledge.
But you know what's
Now,
interesting to me is if she was this 5th old god that was destroyed by the others, in the scenes in Battle for Azeroth, if you guys remember, she's talking to N'Zoth. So wouldn't N'Zoth know that she was trying to come back and try to kill her or something? If she was still a threat? Or trying to become a threat once again? Why would N'Zoth help her? I don't know. He is the ultimate planner, though, so there could be a reason for it that we don't know yet.
Now, she also was powerful enough to be locked away in the dagger rather than destroyed outright.
But you remember, she
And
brought us
the
to
only way
N'Zoth
she was able to free
to get
herself
the gift
was by presenting
of
N'Zoth
N'Zoth.
with a deal that he could not refuse. Now, does that mean
Oh,
that
wait a minute. That's okay. That's why he didn't kill her, because she brought us as a sacrifice, essentially, that N'Zoth couldn't refuse because he wanted to give us his gift, his seed. He wanted to hentai us, basically. But that's how she got away. Okay, that makes sense.
he is the one who put her in the dagger in the first place? Hard to know, but while in the dagger, she was lost to the seas after the Sundering, and the Naga kept her for a long,
Yes.
long time. The Naga actually reclaimed her too after Legion, and that is why we found her in Battle for Azeroth. Part of N'Zoth's plan all along then, it
Right.
seems. Anyway, she's clearly not at her full level of power. And if she is all that remains of an old god, as is speculated in the Legion Artifact Knowledge lore text, then where did the rest of her go? If you were an all-powerful but broken apart being, you would imagine your first priority would be to restore your power.
Right.
And then what was the source of this hungering essence that is found in Galakrond anyway? This is a long shot, but what if it was actually part of Xal'atath?
Oh,
After all,
shit.
she did spend all of Legion talking about consuming our enemies. right? And that is actually how we restore her strength in battle for Azeroth. It's all via consumption. Hell, she even makes one reference to consuming the world itself. Xal'atath, of course, may not even be her full name. Maybe the dagger is called Xal'atath. So perhaps she had a name before that. Maybe she was called Katanth. Did Yasharj and N'Zoth
Holy crap, but wait a minute. What if she's actually not just influencing Azeroth, but influencing this world? Because she is the all-consumer, thus leading to consumerism. Currently, in America, the interest rates are rising, right? And yet, these rising interest rates have not quelled the thirst and hunger for housing and cars and stuff like that. Like, all that shit is still sky-high pricing. As high as the prices have got, people continue to consume. Consumerism is at an all-time high. It can't be stopped. It's reaching a feverish pitch. And no matter what the government does, this shit continues. What if this is all the play of an old god in this world? Oh, shit. Oh, shit. I got some five-head strat going on in my head right now.
Battle over what remained of her
I figured it
power
out.
or something.
Xal'atath
if any of this
is coming to Earth.
This is true, then in the alternative timeline, perhaps
and the
she
Earth is flat, yeah.
is the Ancient One who dominated Azeroth and fed in those tributes. And with that, we've pretty much been able to tie every single bit of old god-related lore from 10.0.7 all the way to 10.1.5 into one theory.
Boom.
Which, hey, it fits. That's satisfying. But it does lead to an incredible future where she can consume that essence, she can regain her true form, maybe even at an end of expansion cinematic. One that would be of maybe full cinematic quality, right? You know, Shara is there. Maybe it takes us into a proper Void expansion where we get to see the lingering threads of like Illyria, Shara, Xal'atath, and everything else Void all woven into one story. We could have Ashara's Naga as allies of convenience, hell-bent on stopping Xal'atath and ensuring that their queen will reign. Imagine a Queen Ashara renowned track, underwater dragon riding, and a whole new setting across the open where only the Naga themselves, and of course recently, as we learned in 10.07, some pirates can safely travel. Or there's an even scarier outcome.
Hungry like the planet.
This is the most crazy bit. Okay. What if the Ancient One devouring all is actually Azeroth herself, and Xal'atath's gambit is laid bare to corrupt Azeroth with this essence.
Oh shit.
And to feed her until she awakens. Xal'atath could be our fifth old god, but in this theory, the Ancient One meditating, right, that we see in that other timeline in Azkaroth, what if that Ancient One is actually corrupted Azeroth deep in her sleep? Right?
Oh shit.
Corrupt, ravenous, consuming everything the Empire can offer her.
Corrupting the planet itself.
And that means that our next adventure would be pretty crazy. It will be a campaign to stop Xal'atath from being able to corrupt Azeroth. And it even opens up the plot for Ashara, who is clearly poised to do something crazy, to foil her plans and take that power for herself. Which would lead to a temporary, truce between us and Xal'atath.
She's just playing games thinking she's going to win.
On whatever our nutcase queen is trying to pull. More time with Naifu, whispering to us will probably go down well. Maybe a renowned track with some Void entities and a Black Empire-esque home base. Maybe that would be crazy and cool.
Yeah.
The potential here is kind of huge, but it all points to one plot line anyway, that this hungering essence that is slurped out of the corpse of Galakrond is going to make
time he says that, I just imagine
ultimate plans for Azeroth, and Xal'atath is going to be a key player in this. I would put money on her turning out to be way, way more important than she has ever let on. Maybe she is Katanth, our fifth old god, maybe just a second in command, but either way, this patch has been a secret lore bomb, and Blizzard's expansion announcement is honestly only getting more and more exciting by the day. Below, cast your vote.
Oh.
The Ancient One. Is it corrupted Azeroth, sleeping, gathering power, or
that's a way to,
is it
I think it's the fifth old god,
or Katanth that has managed to consume all other old gods and have ultimate power?
I think she's the old god of consumption or whatever.
Which one is it?
What's up, baby J?
Let me know what your vote is down in those comments. Thank you for joining me in today's Tentacle Void madness, which is always fun. And with that, be sure to support our sponsor, and I'll see you next time.
Great video. Damn. I mean, that really tied together a lot of lore. and retconned it in a way where it's not technically a retcon. It's really a telling of the truth, and everything we were told before was a lie. But I like this video a lot. Great stuff from Bellular on this one, I'm not gonna lie.